Hello. Today, let's continue with Swami Rama talking about lectures on yoga. This was first from around 1970, something over 40 years ago. And this was a period before there was, the very institutions that authorized the certifying of so-called yoga teachers in our modern world. So this predates this, and this has to do with traditional yoga. And the section we're going to look at today is, here it is, entitled, What is Yoga? And this is sort of, so to speak, playfully said, old-fashioned yoga. The word yoga is much used and much misunderstood these days, even though this was over 40 years ago. For our present age is one of faddism. And yoga has been reduced to the status of a fad. Many false and incomplete teachings have been propagated in its name. It has been subject to commercial exploitation, and one small aspect of yoga is often taken to be all of yoga. And this was just when that phenomenon was getting started. For instance, many people in the West think it is a physical and beauty cult, while others think it is a religion. All of this has obscured the real meaning of yoga. Let me try to give you a glimpse of its true nature. Here we go, true nature of yoga. Yoga is a systematic science. Its teachings are an integral part of most religions, but yoga itself is not a religion. Most religions teach one what to do, but yoga teaches one how to be. Yoga practices, however, described in symbolic language, may be found in the sacred scriptures of most religions. He speaks a little bit about that. We'll go over that. The origins of yoga are obscure. They go back many thousands of years and are considered to be divine rather than human. India is a stronghold of this science because the original purity of the teachings has been maintained there, because yoga teachings have been handed down in India through a living tradition, the master discipleship tradition. Yoga teachings were systematized by a sage named Patanjali, who around 200 BC codified the teachings into 196 short aphorisms or sutras. And note here that he uses the approximately 200 BC number. The actual ranges that are sometimes used go from as old as about 800 BC to 200 of the current era, or AD. And elsewhere, there's another explanation that the reason for the uncertainty of those dates is because Patanjali was actually the name of a lineage. It was a family name, like a school, rather than just being one person. But almost everybody, including I do it myself, speak of Patanjali as if there is a him, as if there's a one person. I like to use a comparison of saying, like when Harvard publishes a new research, it means Harvard University, but we just say Harvard. And there originally was a man named Harvard. There are several menus and manuscripts not yet translated into English or any other modern language, which helped in understanding and practicing the aphorisms of Patanjali. but there are also well-known commentaries on the sutras, such as those of Vyasa Bhashya and Vashapati Mishra. Many of the authoritative English translations will include the Vyasa commentary along with it. And there's a very good one that has that translation and one by Vashapati Mishra. If you're ever curious about that, let me know and I'll send you a link to it. It's available through Amazon, etc. Well, hello, everybody. Jamie is coming over, I see. So she is. There she is, over there. And there's Roseanne. Hi. And there's Raz. Namaste. What in the world is it? What is yoga? Well, Johnny, we're going to do that, huh? Hi, Scott. And there's Inika. Hello, Inika.
I like that. What in the world is it, though?
What in the world is it?
Because in this world, what is it?
That's just choice of words, I think. The central teaching of yoga, here it comes, everybody. The central teaching of yoga is that man's true nature is divine, perfect, and infinite. Central teaching. How often are people told that when they go to a yoga class in modern times now? How many people taught that's the central teaching? How many teacher training programs, if you're going to go become a certified yoga teacher, how many teacher training programs start with that statement or anything like it? I don't think I've ever seen an advertisement, which I see all often. I don't think I've ever seen an advertisement for a yoga teacher training program that starts with anything like that piece of information. He is unaware of this divinity, however, because he falsely identifies himself with his body, mind, and objects of the external world. This false identification, in turn, makes him think he is imperfect and limited, subject to sorrow, decay, and death, because his mind and body are subject to the limitations of time, space, and causation. Well, hi, Nilesh. Hello, Nelly. Through the meditative methods of yoga, however, man can cast off this ignorance and become aware of his own true self, which is pure and free from all imperfections. Note here this choice of words, through the meditative methods of yoga. Gee, in other words, yoga is meditation. How many times I have encountered somebody talking about at our place we do yoga and meditation. Yoga and meditation. Here is yoga and over there is meditation, and we do yoga and meditation. I'm sorry, it's not accurate. Yoga is meditation. If you're curious, we have a Udemy course that touches on that theme anyway. The Sanskrit word yoga comes from the root yuj, meaning to join together or unite, and yoga represents the union of the individual self or Atman with the supreme with the supreme universal self or Paramatman. This is the union of man with the absolute reality. The same concept is described in the Bible by the word yoke, meaning mystic union. Oh, my. The modern age is a machine age. Most modern societies are obsessed by power, and much time and effort are wasted in trying to discover more powerful and more destructive weapons. Technology has made rapid progress, but man has not. Oops. He has learned to harness atomic energy, but is unable to control his own senses and his own mind. The danger of atomic weapons lies not in the powerful destructive devices themselves. it arises because of the uncontrolled minds of the men who are corrupted by their power. All of man's efforts have been directed outwards, and little evolution has taken place in his inner world. His instincts, urges, passions, emotions, thoughts, and actions are as primitive today as they were in less advanced ages. I wish I could say that I'm reading this now over 40 years after its publication and say, well, isn't it nice that our world has changed since then? But it has not. In fact, it seems to have gotten worse. He is engrossed in ignorance, which is characterized by restlessness, a blind clinging to earthly existence, perverted individualism, voluptuous abandonment to sensual pleasures, violence, strife, and discord. Boy, pretty strong words, huh? Hi, Yolanda. But we get to be a little bitty part, each of us, of the solution to this stuff. Man, in his ignorance, chases the fleeting shadows of wealth, position, and power, but he can derive no real happiness from finite objects that are conditioned by time, space, and causation. His wants are insatiable, and he is always dissatisfied. $1 of pleasure is mixed with $99 of pain, fear, and worry. True happiness, inner peace, and contentment elude him. In affluent societies, there are many men who have satisfied their basic needs, who have many comforts and luxuries, as well as sizable savings, men who have achieved prestige and a position of power in their professions, who have healthy and intelligent families, yet they are discontent and searching. In spite of everything they have, there is still something lacking in their lives, and so they continue to search for it in the outside world. Little do they realize that what they lack is inner peace, which the world outside can never give them. Few truly realize that happiness is a state of mind, that amidst the din and boisterous bustle of worldly activities, there appear moments of tranquility and peace when the mind soars above temporary pleasures and reflects on the higher mysteries of life. In these moments, every man is a philosopher. He then begins to search for the truth, and discrimination dawns on him. If such a man adopts the meditative life, even amidst his worldly activities, he will eventually attain the highest wisdom and the highest bliss and self-realization of self-realization. And I'll note here that you hear in the language, this was very common. That's just been over 40 years ago. And at that time, it was very common to use in common language the word men, and it was taken to mean men and women. Since then, our world has changed a little bit, and now there's a greater effort to use she more often or to say men and women. But anyway, that's where this comes. So this is not a sexist bias. We've had the whole feminine woman revolution happening for decades since then, I'm happy to say. But anyway, if you happen to notice that, that's where that comes from. Just remember the timing of this. This was the world I grew up in as a child, that men was used, meaning to imply both. And there is Hashim. Hi, Hashim. Guten Tag. Or is it Guten Abend? Guten Abend, Jean. The whole process of yoga is an ascent into the purity of that absolute perfection, which is the original state of man. There it is again. It implies, therefore, the removal of enveloping impurities. the stilling of lower feelings and thoughts, and the establishment of a state of perfect balance and harmony. All the methods of yoga have ethical and moral perfection as their basis, and thus a new world order of love could easily be effected by the adoptions of even the simplest and most fundamental observances of yogic discipline. Seems to be not happening, but we know that it's conceivable. The greatest problem for the beginner is his inherent restlessness of mind. Mind, by its very nature, is ever outgoing and unsteady. The highest state of meditation, however, requires a one-pointed mind, free from attachments and worldly desires. This is why attachment of the mind towards worldly objects is the arch enemy of the student of yoga. We don't hear that very often, do we, in the yoga studios? To reach subtler levels of consciousness, one needs willpower, discrimination, firm control of the mind, as well as conscious direction of its powers towards the desired end. And this is possible only through a resolute turning away from worldly attachments, a determined effacement of the ego, a deliberate stoppage of all inharmonious mental processes, and a constant dwelling upon the ultimate goal. Constant, not part-time. To achieve this, one need not renounce home and society and retire to the solitude of a mountain cave. One can achieve a state of non-attachment and desirelessness at home while engaging in worldly activities. If yogic discipline becomes a part of one's daily life. True renunciation of worldly desires is a mental state. It does not necessarily need to be a physical act of renunciation, a very important point. It has to do with renouncing the mental, not the physical. But success is possible only with constant and intense practice, always keeping in mind that the ultimate aim is perfection and bliss. Swami Rama explains there are 4 stages of non-attachment. 1, the first stage is to make a sincere attempt at not allowing the mind to dwell on sensual objects. 2, when objects attract the student, he should endeavor to free himself from those attractions. When discrimination dawns gradually, non-attachment develops and equilibrium is established. 3, even after the senses have been subdued, the mind still has hatred and affection for worldly objects because the mind can function independently of the senses. 4, in the higher stages of non-attachment, the objects of the world do not tempt one at all. The senses are under control and the mind is perfectly free from likes and dislikes and all other pairs of opposites. The aspirant has now gained independence and supremacy. Without non-attachment, no spiritual progress is possible. It's a nice little list. Nice to keep that stuff in mind. If we're not there, we can see where we're going, right? Yes, I was waiting for that, Roseanne. Okay, let's hear a free from Roseanne. Thank you. Let us now consider the prerequisites for one who decides to tread the path of yoga towards spiritual enlightenment. You never hear that either, do you? Prerequisites. The only prerequisite is write me a check, give me your money. Then you can have all the yoga in the studio. The prerequisites are good health, a sound mind, sincerity, and a burning desire for liberation from human perfections are necessary prerequisites. Good health is ensured by a simple and well-regulated diet, adequate sleep, some physical exercise, and relaxation. Purity of food leads to purity of mind. Heavy food leads to inertia. Now, I don't know. This one we can talk about. Milk, fruits, fresh vegetables, nuts, and the like are helpful if they are in proper balance. And I know here that the milk he was talking about was a very, very small amount of milk. We don't actually need milk at all. We don't need animal products. But I know the degree to which he's referring to milk is in a very, very small quantity. One also needs a suitable place for the practice of yoga exercises and meditation. It should be maintained at a moderate temperature throughout the year and should be well ventilated, free from dampness, clean and quiet. In addition, since all distractions, disturbances, and diseases arise from an imbalance of the three doshas, wind, bile, and phlegm, not too much phlegm, for instance, makes the body heavy, inert, and stiff too much. One should choose one's diet and the place for practice so as to maintain a balance of these. Yoga science has two aspects, theoretical and practical. Theory can be learned through books and scriptures, but a perfect guide or guru is needed for the practical aspect. The word guru means one who dispels the darkness of ignorance. And of course, we know guru is not a person and is needed because in yoga there are several different methods that work towards the same goal of perfection. Only guru can select and prescribe what is suitable to the upbringing, circumstances, mind, and nature of the student. Wonder what that being was. We'll ignore it. One who tries to learn the practical aspect of yoga through books or from attending a few lectures is often bewildered by the great variety and diversity of techniques available in yoga. He gains nothing by trying a little of everything, and even if he is sincere, his effort is wasted. A true yogi will always lead the student systematically through the complex stages of yoga to the ultimate state of perfection. These days, there are many yogis who claim to be perfect masters, and it is hard to know how one distinguishes true guru from the many imposters. But when a student prepares himself by increasing his mental capacity, he starts discriminating between right and wrong and between useful and useless values in the area of learning and teaching. And he becomes able to evaluate various teachers accordingly. Very useful information, discriminating between right and wrong, discriminating between useful and not useful. The Upanishads, which are ancient yogic scriptures, state that when the disciple is ready, the master appears. This means that when a student has an intense desire for truth in his heart, he will receive divine help sooner or later. Fortunate indeed is a student who has the blessings and guidance of Guru. As mentioned earlier, there are many different methods of yoga, all leading to the same goal of self-realization. The methods vary so as to accommodate various temperaments and capacities. Excuse me, but they are like the different spokes of a wheel. They all meet at the same center, self-realization. The different paths of yoga are not mutually exclusive. They merely represent a difference of emphasis. Emphasis only, not really different. Let us briefly consider some of these different paths. And remember, it's different emphasis. They actually are all spokes of a wheel. They go together. Karma yoga, the yoga of action. This path teaches one to do one's own duty, skillfully and selflessly, dedicating the fruits of his actions to humanity. This yoga helps one to live successfully in the world while remaining above it, unaffected by worldly fetters. 2, Bhakti yoga, the yoga of devotion. This path is known as the path of love and devotion. It is the path of self-surrender, of devoting and dedicating all of one's resources to attaining the ultimate reality. 3. Jnana Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. This path involves intense discrimination. Knowledge dawns on one who persistently discriminates between the real and the unreal, between the transient and the everlasting, between the finite and the infinite. This path is tread by only a fortunate few who systematically contemplate the higher and subtler realities of life. And again, once again, we're approaching this. Remember, we may individually have a different emphasis, but these all work together. Kundalini Yoga is a highly technical subject which needs the guidance of a competent teacher, even though there are various manuals and methods for awakening the serpent-like vital force that remains sleeping in the city of life in every human being. And remember, once again, it's different emphasis, they blend together. At the heart of this, in the preliminary, is the Sushumna awakening practice that we're all familiar with. Mantra Yoga, in the deep state of meditation, the highly accomplished sages in ancient times received certain sounds which are traditionally transmitted to the student and which are to be used as objects of concentration. There are many varieties of mantras which help the student in purification, concentration, and meditation. Om Tat Sat, for example. All comes down to Om. 6. Hatha Yoga. Ha and Ta are symbolic syllables used to indicate the flow of the breath in the right and left nostrils. Hatha Yoga deals mostly with body and breathing exercises which prepare the student to become aware of his internal states. Hatha Yoga exercises are designed in such a way that the body becomes an instrument for treading the path of higher life. 7. Raja Yoga. The royal path is highly scientific. It was systematized by the codifier of yoga Patanjali, and by following it, one learns to control his desires, emotions, and thoughts, as well as the subtle impressions which lie dormant in the unconscious. It unites the individual to the cosmic reality by means of the 8 rungs in the yoga ladder, which are systematically explained and described. The aspirant finally attains the 8th rung, called samadhi. Later on in this text, there's a chapter on each of these steps. As emphasized earlier, these paths are not mutually exclusive. Each student of yoga practices them all to some extent, for perfection comes only when man develops his actions, speech, and mind together. One-sided development is not desirable. Karma Yoga helps one to perform his duties in the external world so that his actions become means rather than obstacles in the path of self-realization. Bhakti Yoga develops devotion and faith and destroys hindrances to concentration and meditation. It makes one into a gentle being and develops a zeal for living. In this way, relationships with others become harmonious. Jnana Yoga removes the veil of ignorance and develops the power of discrimination and will. Study and contemplation of the scriptures with the aid of a competent teacher completely and finally help one in attaining self-realization. Raja Yoga steadies the mind and makes it one-pointed. The differences between the different paths of yoga lie in the preliminaries to the final stages and in the methods of concentration they prescribe. But the final 3 stages of development are common to all. These are the stages of concentration, meditation, and the final union of samadhi. They all lead to the state of perfection, wisdom, and bliss. The yoga described by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras is Raja Yoga, the royal path. It encompasses teachings from all the different paths, and because of the variety of methods it includes, it can be practiced by people of varying backgrounds and temperaments. Raja Yoga is involved with three dimensions or realms: physical, mental, and spiritual. Although through its methods, one achieves mastery of all three and is thus led to full realization of the self, capital S self. It is a systematic and scientific discipline that does not impose in questioning faith, but encourages healthy discrimination. Certain practices are prescribed along with the benefits derived from them, so Raja Yoga can therefore be scientifically verified by anyone who accepts its methods as a hypothesis to be tested, not to just blindly believed in, hypothesis to be tested by his own experience. Because of this, Raja Yoga is ideally suited to modern times in which skepticism is almost a religion. Listen to this. Raja Yoga is also called Ashtanga Yoga, or the Eightfold Path, because its 8 steps trace a systematic path of regulation and control from the gross to the subtler to the subtlemost manifestations of the mind. And note here that this reference to Ashtanga Yoga was written a couple decades before the term Ashtanga Yoga was co-opted by Mr. Patabi Joy and turned into a physical exercise program. The 8 steps are Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. They will be described briefly here, and in the succeeding chapters they will be discussed in detail. We'll do that on different days. The first 4 steps, Yama, Niyama, Asana, and Pranayama, comprise the path of Hatha Yoga, which is both auxiliary and preliminary to the last 4 stages of Raja Yoga. Yama and Niyama are the 10 commitments of yoga, of which the 5 yamas or restraints are non-violence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-possessiveness. Their practice leads to behavioral modification in which all imperfections are replaced by virtues. The 5 niyamas or observances are cleanliness, both external and internal, contentment practices which bring about perfection of body and senses or tapas, study of the scriptures, and surrender to the ultimate reality. The niyamas regulate one's habits and hence lead to the control of one's behavior. For actions, when repeated, crystallized into habits, and these habits, in the course of time, are incorporated as definite traits in one's personality. Oops, let's see what Roseanne has. Need to go. Oh, well, darn. See you later, Roseanne. The beginner should not be discouraged by the immensity of these first 2 steps in Raja Yoga. He is not asked to perfect the yamas and niyamas before proceeding further. Important point. But he should try to practice them as conscientiously as he can. With persistent effort, he will eventually be able to perfect them. When Hatha Yoga is taught in the West, however, only asana and certain breathing exercises are taught. The yamas and niyamas are usually neglected because of the difficulties they entail and the change of lifestyle that are necessary in order to practice them. Hatha Yoga has therefore degenerated into a cult of physical beauty and prolonged youth. Asanas and breathing exercises ensure physical health and harmony, it is true, but their full benefits can be realized only by one whose mind is free from violent and distracting emotion, and it is yama and niyama that enable the student to cultivate a steady and tranquil mind. The 3rd step in Raja Yoga is asana or posture, of which there are 2 types: meditative postures and postures which ensure physical well-being. A stable meditative posture leads in the course of time to a stable mind. for the mind and body interact to an amazing degree. If the body is uncomfortable and unsteady, it acts upon the mind, making it unsteady and distracted. Experience has shown that a posture suitable for meditation should be comfortable and stable, ensuring that the head, neck, and trunk be erect and in a straight line. Such a posture makes it possible for one to have a motionless body, thus preventing unchecked restlessness from disturbing mind and dissipating the will. The beginner should select and cultivate one posture and not change it continually. The second kind of posture is practiced to perfect the body, making it supple and free from disease. These postures control specific muscles and nerves and hence have therapeutic benefits. Excuse me. For instance, yogis have cured diseases such as leprosy with the posture called Mayurasana, the peacock posture. The yogic posture of relaxation called Shavasana in conjunction with certain breathing techniques can cure hypertension, heart ailments, and several other imbalances of body and mind. Specific postures and the fourth step of Raja Yoga is pranayama, or control of prana, the vital energy that sustains body and mind. The grossest manifestation of prana is the breath. The grossest manifestation of prana is the breath. So pranayama is also called the science of breathing. Regulation of breath leads to regulation of the mind. For if the mind is disturbed, there is a corresponding disturbance in the breathing and vice versa. This is easily observed in one who is afraid, excited, overcome by passion, and the like. His breathing is rapid and irregular. By the same token, continuous regulation of the breathing rhythm leads to a calm mind. In addition, the exercises of pranayama purify and strengthen the nervous system. The fifth step of Raja Yoga is pratyahara, or withdrawal and control of the senses. The mind contacts the objects of the world through the five senses of sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. It is thus constantly gathering sensations from the external world, and these sensations set it to wandering. The student of yoga should therefore acquire the ability to voluntarily withdraw the senses inward and thus isolate himself from the distractions of the world outside. To do this, the student should always be aware of the sense organs and should attempt to control their activity. This is not a physical process, but a voluntary mental one. For sense withdrawal from the external objects is an essential preliminary to concentration. Dharana, or concentration, is the sixth step of Raja Yoga. In concentration, the dissipated power of the mind are gathered together and directed toward the object of concentration through continued voluntary attention. Involuntary attention is effortless, but in voluntary attention, a conscious effort of the will is involved, which is developed through perseverance. When it is strengthened, the student is able to concentrate, and then there is a focusing of the mind on the object of concentration, which may be an external object or a mental object. Through dharana, or concentration, the diffused mind is focused and hence made more powerful and penetrative. Therefore, in order to fulfill the latent potentials of the mind, one should systematically cultivate the ability to concentrate. Let's see what I took on a 40-day, Nellie says, 40-day exploration of Saucha. Straight away, you made me clear on one level Saucha after I got also a flu, which is in the belly. The Sauchi stated here before belly started. Saucha. Good reminder, Nellie. Let's all do Saucha. Good stuff, huh? Prolonged, unbroken concentration leads to the state of meditation, or dhyana, which is the 7th step in Raja Yoga. Oh, this thing is sliding. Concentration makes the mind one-pointed and steady. Meditation expands the one-pointed mind to the superconscious state by piercing through its conscious and subconscious levels. Meditation is the uninterrupted flow of the mind towards one object or concept, and with this flow, intuitive knowledge dawns. All methods of yoga prepare one to reach the stage of meditation. All methods of yoga. For only through meditation can one reach the level of the superconscious mind and hence attain perfection. Why is meditation necessary? Just as there is a subconscious state beneath the conscious state, so is there a superconscious state above the conscious state. Meditation alone can take one to this blissful state of mind. Few people reach it because it is possible to get there only through persistent effort, and only after meditation has become a part of one's life. Meditation can also help one to overcome physical and psychological problems. A large percentage of all diseases is psychosomatic, arising from conflicts, repressions, and suppressions in the unconscious mind. Meditation leads one to an awareness of these conflicts, helps one to analyze them, and then erase them, thus establishing harmony at the unconscious level. Not merely the conscious, but the unconscious level. No truly intellectual person could possibly be satisfied with modern education. It is superficial, one-sided, and it involves repetitious parroting. It does not help one to know, develop, and control one's internal states. Meditation alone can help one do this. Man then becomes aware of his latent powers and is able to control his subtler energies, thus becoming more creative and dynamic. In such a person, the so-called supernatural powers of telepathy, clairvoyance, and the like arise spontaneously. His limitations begin to drop away, and miracles are within his abilities. The prophets of all religions were, through their meditative prowess, able to perform many miracles, which were not really miracles at all, but only the fulfilling of the natural potential within all human beings. The training and discipline needed to reach such a state, however, ensure against the misuse of these powers for selfish ends. A wise person regards such powers merely as byproducts of the yogic discipline, indications of progress. His sole aim is union with the cosmic spirit, and he is not blinded by the powers. He simply continues to practice the disciplines until he reaches the state of perfection. Prolonged and intense meditation leads to the last step of Raja Yoga, the state of samadhi, or the superconscious state. In this state, man becomes one with the divine self, capital S, and transcends all imperfections and limitations. This is the state of the mystic union described in Christian, Buddhist, Mohammedan, and Hindu scriptures. The state of samadhi is also known as the fourth state of sleepless sleep, which transcends the three normal states of waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. A person who has attained samadhi is a blessing to society, for if humanity is to achieve a better civilization, it is possible only through the growth of the inner being. The entire life of a person who is established in samadhi is a spontaneous expression of the unhindered flow of supreme consciousness. The physical sciences are based on sense perceptions that are interpreted by the rational faculty. Sense perceptions and rationality, however, are limited by time, space, and causation. They do not give us a complete understanding of the various forces shaping people and all of creation. Yoga science is the soul of all sciences and all philosophies. It can solve the basic problems of modern people, both in the West and in the East. It is definite and systematic, and it leads one to the highest source of knowledge, which is called intuitive knowledge. The teachings of yoga have been handed down to us because of the ancient yogis of India who lived selfless lives, renouncing worldly cares and pleasures in order to devote themselves to the meditative life. Their unique experiences enabled them to understand and interpret correctly the true nature of matter, mind, and energy. And this knowledge gleaned from their intuitive experiences was then expressed outwardly and in a systematic manner. It is this direct knowledge that has been handed down from guru to disciple in a long chain from ancient times to the present day. Fortunate indeed is the sincere aspirant who comes into contact with this continuous and spontaneous flow of truth. Through these ancient teachings, one can raise the capacity of the mind to perceive, assimilate, and respond to the infinite consciousness, which is the basis of all manifestation. And that is an attempt to answer the question, what is yoga? Pretty good stuff, isn't it? Bye-bye, Yolanda. So, pretty rich stuff, isn't it? Yoga. Yoga. The next section is on yama and niyama. To be continued, okay? To be continued a different day, okay? Thank you for visiting and enjoying and playing. Enjoy yoga. I know there's a lot in that little chapter, but everybody hanging out in this conversation, we're all familiar with what yoga is about, but it's kind of nice to go through this. When I first ran into this, it had been published about 10 years when I first encountered this. And this that we've just gone through, for me as an individual person, was probably the most life-changing book I ever held in my hand. Anyway, so it's personally very close to me. Thanks for visiting, Johnny. Bye-bye, Nilesh. I know you enjoyed, Roz. Keep it up. And there's a heart from Nellie. Heart. Anna. Thanks for visiting, Anna. Okay, to be continued. And remember, all of this is to be found where there's the symbol of the whole thing, as you all know, simply to be found in the silence after the Om. There's the picture version of what is yoga. Okay? All right. Dewey, borrowing words from our friends, the Dutchies. Bye-bye. Have a nice next meditation, okay? And it's in the silence after the Om. Called Sat, therefore Om Tat Sat. There is an Om. The after the Om. Bye-bye.